There we go. My name is Becky, and I've decided to attempt a vlog because I tend to kind of ramble. I thought I'll just call it Daily Ramblings of a Perimenopausal Gen-X Oma and go from there. A majority of this idea initially started because I wanted to discuss my medical issues that I've recently been dealing with. And there's limited, I'm going to say, information that I'm able to find regarding it. And I do belong to a couple of groups on Facebook that I have gotten some information on. But I decided I wanted to kind of tell my story at this point of how I'm dealing with it. And hopefully it'll be helpful. In the meantime, during my stories, I may be like crocheting or doing something else. And I'm open to questions from anybody watching this that might be interested to know any more information about any of what I discuss. And there'll be numerous topics. So hopefully you enjoy it. This is one of the few ways I can socialize at this point, since I am not currently working. And due to my medical issues, I am not able to drive. I can walk to get out and about, but we also don't really have a local bus system where I live. I think if we do, it's extremely limited, and I can't afford Ubers everywhere. So yeah, just hopefully you enjoy my journey and struggles and positives along with me. And let me know if there's anything in particular. I'm here to talk. Again, I am an Oma, or grandma. I'm a young grandma, and I am a Gen Xer. I just turned 50 this year. And with that, I've gone through a lot of poor decision making throughout my life, and a lot of lessons. Some that I think I had to go through a couple times to truly learn. But I'm open for discussions, questions, ideas, and we'll go from there. I do have a TikTok. I've not been as active on that lately, since I've been dealing with my illness, but I do have my TikTok, so you're welcome to join me on that. I also am on Instagram and Facebook, but I will always enjoy the company. And so I'll start out with my medical issues, as they will be probably the centerpiece of some of my conversations, as it's something I'm still very much learning to cope with. And now, back in 2018, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, but I was kind of expecting that diagnosis. I had watched my mother, who had also been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, since she was, I want to say, in her mid-40s. So I'd watched her go through her issues with that, and I knew some of the symptoms I was having were familiar. Now, anybody who has MS or really any of these different autoimmune diseases, chronic illnesses, there are similarities. There's, medical facts related to them, but everybody's journey is very different. Sometimes almost everything seems similar, but then there's the one or two other things. And some people are struggling with different levels of these illnesses. So for me, I knew some of the symptoms she had been having. I remembered the things she had complained about when I was younger, and that, so I'll start out with that. When I first was realizing that it was something that needed my attention, like I said, it was 2018, or maybe the end of 2018, but I had a strange numbness, tingling going on that, like, if you took my body and completely head to toe cut it in half exactly, my left side from the top of my head all the way down was tingly, numbness in my arms, and I was concerned because also at the time I was over 330 pounds. I was under quite a bit of stress, and I had no history of heart issues, but I had family history of heart disease and things like that, and I was really concerned that I was either having a stroke or possibly a heart attack, because this was lasting, for a while I'd think, oh, I just slept wrong. But after like the third day, it was still really bothering me, so I went to the emergency room. I've never had a really terrible experience at our local emergency room. Many people have different stories, and I'm sorry about that. I mean, it's always a hit or miss anyway, I believe, when you go to an emergency room. But they did all the usual, they EKGs, they sent me through CTs, MRIs, all that. At the end of it, the consensus was that most likely was a pinched nerve, but luckily the doctor I had on that was on call that night did find, and the radiologist who read the CT was slightly concerned of possibility of MS with something that they saw, and they recommended that I see my primary care and that I then be sent to a neurologist. So that's what we did. The primary care looked at everything, no questions asked, sent in the authorization for me to go see a neurologist. I found a very good neurologist locally that had an opening, sent me for more MRIs and a lumbar puncture, which confirmed the MS diagnosis. I was sitting at my work desk when I got the call, and I was like, well, I told the doctor straight up, I kind of figured that's what was going to happen. Now, MS is not considered a genetic illness. I do believe, in my view and from what I've read, and I think I have read somewhere, that there could be some, I don't know if it's necessarily markers, but there are some possibilities to MS obviously happening within families, because I do have a cousin on my mother's side who has MS as well. It's like a third cousin or second cousin. I don't remember exactly. But so there is some, I don't know if it would be considered maybe a predisposition. I really can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, which is part of the second part of my illnesses. And the MS, I'm sure, because I do have some cognitive issues with it. I am very lucky in the sense that I would say caught it early, but also I started Ocrevus, which was the infusion that had just come out maybe a year or two before this, or at least that I recognize. It may have been out longer, but it's once every 6 months. I would go in for pretty much all day. It seemed about 5 hours, have an infusion, and then be on my way. And it seemed to have, for me, in my case, slowed the progression of the MS attacks. So, so that was helpful. And luckily, it does not appear to really be attacking so much in my brain as much as my spinal area. But I am able to walk. Everything's good with that. So I have what's relapsing remittent, I believe they call it, MS, which was what my mom had. Hers seems to be, since her 60s, late 60s, it seems to be, I guess, dormant is what they're saying. They still check her, every so often, MRIs, all that. But she also has been, since then, dealing with different cancers and other things that have been more urgent than the MS. But anyway, so I've just been going along my life doing the every 6-month infusion, take my vitamin D3 every day, and just trucking along, doing great things. I had a job I absolutely loved. I really, really loved my job. And I was feeling pretty settled and happy for the most part. There's daily stresses, there's financial stresses always. And with MS, they tell you to keep your stress levels down, which, there's just regular daily stress, but I did have spikes in stress levels and stuff, and I would have days that were a little more tiring. I did have balance issues, still do, more so now than before even. And I think in the last few years, my cognitive has been a little bit affected by the MS. But overall, I was doing okay. Through the last couple of years, I've gone through legal separation from my husband. Still very happy, like I say, in my job. Things were going, pretty well. I have, in the last 3 years or so, I've gained 4 grandchildren. So I'm a young grandma, which I knew was most likely going to happen, but very happy. I had a son-in-law, and things were going okay. I was doing well in my job. I loved my coworkers. Everything was good. So we went through COVID and all that, made it through that for the few years. I was a little nervous around that with my MS because of the immunodeficiency, but I wore a mask. I did everything we were supposed to. And basically, jumping ahead now to, I want to say, I was August of 2024. I had decided, and actually in 2023, around my birthday, I had decided to talk to my doctor about bariatric surgery. My MS was under control. For the most part, I was doing okay in my daily life. I had my grandbabies coming, and I wanted to be that young, fun grandma that could keep up with them. And I've been having a lot of problems with my knees. And again, I was over 330 pounds. I don't know how much this matters for people that are paying attention to this. I definitely was morbidly obese. I'm 5'4", and I think BMI, for whatever that matters, was well over 35. I was unhealthy as far as weight goes. My heart was healthy, my blood pressure was healthy, everything else was fine. But I found through my insurance, which was really good insurance, it would cover bariatric surgery. And it did. It covered everything. So I went through my primary care, got the referrals, went through, it was a year-long process of different blood work, tests. They sent me to psychiatric appointments, nutritionists, everything, to make sure I really understood the process of what I was going through. And I felt pretty confident. And I want to say it was June or July of 2024, the doctor wanted to see me lose, I want to say about 10 pounds, 15 pounds before he would schedule the surgery. So I'm like, okay, let's get this done, see how committed I can be. So I did. I went on, they had me go on a liquid diet, and it was tough. But I did it. Just protein shakes and Greek yogurt pretty much was all I had during that time. Exercised when I could. My office, we had a lobby area that was not always busy, so my lunch times or whenever I had a few minutes, I would just do laps in the lobby. Probably would look silly to anybody else that was looking in, but our office, most of my coworkers were out in the field, and I just wanted to get some walking in. And it was too hot outside. With MS, you can't, the heat is very hard on me. So anyway, I did all that. I ended up losing like 25 pounds, and the doctor was shocked by that. But cutting into this, basically to shorten conversations about it, they decided, of course, to go ahead and schedule the surgery. That all happened fairly quickly. I was initially planning on getting a gastric bypass. Instead, the day of surgery, the doctor had mentioned that he felt I would be a good candidate for sleeve instead, which would be less invasive, less recovery time. And if it didn't give me the results I wanted, I could still go back and get the bypass. Whereas once you have the bypass, if it doesn't work out, they can't do it again. So I thought, okay, fine, less invasive works for me. I don't like going to the doctor and being on medications and all that, so whatever get me in and out and would still work, that's what we did. Which I am glad I went with sleep. But my problems then started after that process. The surgery went fine. Recovery was okay. It was good. They sent me home after one overnight of monitoring. Problem was I couldn't keep anything down. I had to be on a liquid-only diet again for several weeks. I couldn't even keep water down. I couldn't definitely keep any vitamins down, medications, anything. It would come right back up. About 2 weeks after being home, I had my daughter take me to the ER because I could tell I was dehydrated. At least that's what I thought. I'm starting to think now it was the beginning signs of my ultimate diagnosis. But they got me hydrated, sent me home. Still couldn't keep anything down. And then one day I couldn't see straight. I was very dizzy, very weak. I was having a hard time walking, balancing, and I thought, oh, maybe it's my MS flaring up because I knew I was going to be due for my next infusion soon. But it usually didn't respond like that for me. So, and just before the surgery, I will say this, I did want to go ahead and push the surgery because due to, I'm going to say it was definitely miscommunication and misunderstanding at my job that I loved very much, and I have nothing against them. I was let go the month of the surgery. So I wanted to go ahead and, I was debating whether I should just still go ahead and do the surgery or not. I went ahead and went through with it. Just because the insurance had already approved it, I'd gone through everything, and I would lose my insurance at the end of the month, and I couldn't afford Cobra. So, so I went ahead and did the surgery, but on top of that, I had the stress of knowing that I didn't have a job, and the grief of knowing that I lost a job I loved very much, and coworkers and friends that I really did care about. But So I thought, okay, that's adding into everything. So it's just MS flares. My daughter was very concerned. It was on Tuesday, I want to say, that I was starting to really notice this and feel this way. And I don't think I was making much sense to her sometimes. Um, and so I told her, well, let's just wait till Saturday, because I knew she had a full schedule of appointments and things for my grandsons that she needed to handle. As a single mom, I knew she was very busy. She had college full time. The last thing she needed was to take care of me. So I thought, oh, I'm just dehydrated. I'll wait till Saturday, which would have been about 4 days. By Wednesday, which was the following day, she said, no, I'm taking you, dropping you off at the ER, that Wednesday morning on the way to dropping my grandson off to school, and have them look at me. And then she'd come back by and pick me up, because, minimum time at an ER is generally 2 hours if you're lucky. So I finally, something was like, yeah, you need to just go ahead and go. So she got me. I remember trying to walk to the car, and I stumbled, and I never usually was that bad, and I had to lean against the car. I'm like, okay, something really is off. I got in line at the ER. They took one look at me at reception. They called out the doctor right away, and he looked at me, and they asked me a few questions. I really don't remember much other than that. And they took me back. They did EKGs, MRIs, CTs, a lumbar puncture. They were trying, I later found out, to rule out meningitis or stroke because of my appearance. And I had, at that time I did not realize it, but I had what's called nystagmus. And which for me, one of the best ways I heard it, it's described by one of the eye doctors I went through at disability, was if you're trying to take a picture with a camera, but the camera screen is doing this all the time. It's always doing that. I've had it lately do things where it fluctuates, boom, 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 which is just weird. It's weird for me, obviously, when things do that. The only way I could describe it to the doctors in the beginning was that if you go to a bar, have just a drink, nothing crazy, maybe 1 or 2 drinks, and you go to stand up to go use the restroom. This is just me, but usually that's my next step. And so you stand up, and the whole world kind of does this for a minute, back and forth. But it was happening for me all the time. And it was just, things were jumping around. I'd have double vision, just weird stuff. The doctor said that they were going to keep me for observation and do some more blood work. Again, to still rule out meningitis, stroke, and try and see what's going on. They kept me ultimately 9 days as an inpatient. Longest time I've ever been in a hospital. They had me working with physical therapy. I had to walk with a walker, had to sit down all the time. I had no energy, no ability to stand up and walk without falling. I still couldn't see. I couldn't see to watch TV. I couldn't see to read. And it was just scary and frustrating and not knowing what's happening. My daughters would visit me in the hospital because they've never had to leave me in the hospital for anything like that. And I know they were all concerned. Ultimately, I think it was the 3rd day, the nurse came in and they said they finally got, which was their suspicion, the diagnosis of extreme thiamine deficiency and the diagnosis of Wernicke's encephalopathy. At the time, I had no idea. I'd never heard of it. Googled it, had a very hard time finding any information on it. It is most commonly diagnosed for people with alcohol abuse disorders, but it is caused by extreme thiamine deficiency. My numbers were at 25, 26, and they're supposed to be in the hundreds, I believe. I really still don't understand all that. I just know it was extremely low. They started me immediately on thiamine infusions daily. One of the um, things I had noticed since then is it is something that is becoming more common with bariatric surgeries. And I think it's more common. It's still considered an uncommon, I guess, disease, but I am seeing more issues with it related to bariatric surgeries. I believe with eating disorders, anything that has to do with nutrition. And I think it's more common than people realize because in the beginning it feels like severe dehydration, you know, and I don't think people realize what's happening. And I know it was never mentioned to me, not once during my year of pre-surgery appointments, even with the nutrition. It was never, ever mentioned, thiamine specifically. I was told that, yeah, you will have to take a daily multivitamin. Nobody ever mentioned, even brought up the fact of the possibilities of this being an issue, of having this illness, of what it would feel like, what could possibly be signs. And I was just amazed that it wasn't even just brought up, just mentioned to me. I still can't see, and I probably never will be able to. I have to take daily thiamine, daily multivitamin. I've been on a 2-year almost list and struggle with disability to try and get disability because I can't work. I have short-term memory issues. I'm having more dizziness lately. I have neuropathy, my fingers, my feet, legs. And my neurologist that handles my MS is also handling my Wernicke's, which was upgraded from, I guess, upgraded or diagnosed instead of Wernicke's encephalopathy, which is like the first part of this. It is now considered Wernicke's Korsakoff syndrome. Or Wernicke's Korsakoff disease. And still, again, trying to get educated on it, on what I can do, if anything. Now, on the positive side, if I have to, which I have to look at positives, I have lost over 150 pounds. And so I do feel better physically for that. I can walk. But I've lost the job I love, the ability to work and get another job similar. I can't drive. I've lost my independence. My newest grandbaby, who's just under a year old, I can see him, I can hold him, but the experience is difficult because I have no depth perception. I can't really make out faces that well. And it's not that my eyes are bad, which was the hard part to deal with disability on. It's that I have healthy eyes. I have a healthy brain even with the MS, but because of these other things, the nystagmus is moving my eyes all the time. And the eye doctor told me there is, until they can figure out how to stop the nystagmus, there's no way I'm going to be able to see again to do anything. Now I do walk. I walk a lot. One of the things I did, which I am thankful my neurologist had brought in the social worker at one of my last appointments, and she gave me the information and encouraged me to contact San Diego Center for the Blind, which I'm so glad I ultimately did. At first I didn't, because I kept thinking, no, I don't want to take services that belong to somebody who, really needs it, who's really having vision issues and stuff. And because I didn't consider myself blind, because in my view, which is very common for a lot of people that didn't deal with it, blindness is complete darkness, complete blindness. You don't see. But that's not true. And there's different levels of blindness and vision impairment. And I have vision impairment, which was hard to accept because again, I just turned 50 this year. I still feel very young. And I was looking at having a very different life this half of my life. And this has caused me, of course, to have to slow down, to have to think. I'm a very independent person. I was a single mom for so many years and had to make a lot of choices and take care of a lot of things myself. You lose all of that. Now, unfortunately, I do have to lean on my daughter a lot, who is a single mom and has to do a lot with her sons. And now has the added pressure and weight of taking care of me, which adds to that guilt as a mom that you, or as a parent, not necessarily a mom, just a parent in general, the guilt you have when you don't want your kids to have to take care of you or worry about you. I thought we'd all be living our separate lives, but visiting all the time, at this point. So anyway, San Diego Center for the Blind is a great organization. I was at their Vista campus. Awesome people, awesome teachers. I will never be able to say enough about them and what they did for me, whether they realize it or not. And the services didn't cost me anything. They run on donation. So please, if you ever, even if you can't help me with things, definitely if you're looking for an organization to give to, there's a few that I'll be mentioning throughout any of my vlogs, but San Diego Center for the Blind is one of them that I will always encourage contributions to. What they do is amazing. They were able to set me up with mobility classes, so I now have my white cane. For those that don't know, it's the cane with the red tip at the end that signifies visual impairment, but helps me see because I have no depth perception. I was stumbling on curbs and things. One of the few ways I could help my daughter was walking my oldest grandson to school, and I didn't want to walk him with the fear that what if I were to fall off the curb or fall on the sidewalk, and his panic in trying to help me because I know he would. So that was amazing. They also are there to help me when it's time and I'm ready for a service dog, which I do want to do at some point. They work with Guide Dog South America and other programs that I've learned more about. They had me do like a basic cooking class, how to work in the kitchen, again, without the depth perception, without being able to see measuring cups and things like that, all the different tricks and things you can do, the things I hadn't even thought of. They had classes to help with even handling cash, with money, with paying for things, because when you're visually impaired, it makes that so much harder. So it definitely helped me get my independence back. They also offered counseling services, which was helpful, something I knew I'd need at some point, but didn't realize how much I really needed it. But one of the other things they did, which was really awesome, was they helped, because I was always such a reader, again, Gen X, we grew up without the computers and the laptops and all the things. I mean, we had like a central classroom computer, black screen, green writing, all that stuff. But everything was imaginative, was books, and I loved reading. I always loved reading. I'd spend so much time in the libraries, but I can't read. So I basically just sit or walk around the house. I try to do some things that I can function with, but the Center for the Blind hooked me up with a program through the Braille Institute that also works with the Library of Congress, and they do books on tape. And they have, like, this is my reader, that it's a free program for visually impaired people. They sent me this reader. They send me books. I can pick out a number of books, and when I return them, there's no late fees or anything, but when I return them, they send out new ones. And their books just come in the mail like this in a blue box. And they're books on tape. like this, and the tape just fits in, and I can adjust the volume. Um, it's got big buttons, easy to read. You can adjust the speed that they talk. You can use headphones, which is something I'm working on getting because I can't wear earbuds. Anytime I do, they just fall out. Doesn't matter what size, anything. But there's these other ones I want to get that's on my Amazon list that are, I think they're called bone conducting. And then I also have the kind that clip here. I can wear those. But anyway, this has been great. It has worked out well to at least give me something. I've also learned a lot about podcasts. But with this Braille Institute program, they also now have an app. So I can do everything on my phone like I would for, say, Audible. But I can pick my books, download them, listen to them on my app. I don't even have to deal with the mail order part of it. So I love that. Again, podcasts. I've gotten into podcasts quite a bit. I have a few favorites that I pretty much live by. One of the first ones I'd ever listened to, my daughter, I think, had me listen to a couple of them. It's called Two Hot Takes. They're pretty popular. Definitely recommend checking them out. It's fun. It's fun listening. It's not depressing. It's not news. I'm so sick of news. But they keep me entertained. The Smosh Reddit series, I listen to them all the time, but I've always had a crush on Shane, even though he's way too young for me, but all of their people that do their podcasts are great, are fun. I love listening to all of them. And Morbid is another one I listen to. I love true crime, so I listen to there's one, Rotten Mango. Annie Elise is one of my favorites also. And there's a whole bunch of them. But for those that might be interested in different podcasts, I will make a list of those to share. I do have, and I'm not going to be inundating people with a bunch of requests for it, but I do have a GoFundMe out there until I can get my disability stuff situated, hopefully within the next couple weeks, praying. I have nothing. I'm having to live off what little bit my daughter can help me with, and I do have my food stamps EBT. I do have Medicaid, so I'm able to feed myself for the most part, but getting to and from appointments, getting basic necessities, getting food for my cat, who I love very much and I will not let go of. She is my best friend. And even things like keeping, the car payment. I exhausted my state disability already. That only lasted me about 9 months. Any savings I had was gone. And I've been going on this process since 2024. The end of 2024 is when I applied for disability. And I know for everybody it's a stressful, lengthy process. But I will say I think it's ridiculous that it takes so long and that there's nothing else to help people. I'm at risk for losing our roof over our head because I can't help that I can't even get a roof over my head, so I have to live with my daughter. She drives me everywhere, so we have to have the car. I have to have Wi-Fi. She's still doing full-time classes on top of everything else, and so we have to keep our Wi-Fi. We have looked and located a home that is more affordable, so we are going to be hopefully moving next month, but in order to do that costs money too. I used to be the one to load the moving trucks and get our stuff, load our boxes. I can't do as much of that as I used to, so now we have to be able to, pay somebody to help us with those things, get the dumpsters, get the cleaning done so we can get our deposits back, all these things, and then just general daily living. So I do have a GoFundMe for that, to help with that while while we figure things out. And to get to and from my disability appointments, they've sent me, towns away, 4-hour road trips to see different doctors, a couple of different times. And of course, if anybody that's going through the process, and I do have an attorney, but anybody going through this process, you have to go to those appointments. You can't delay on any of that. And then I have my regular appointments, my infusions, my medications, which mostly are covered by Medicaid, thank goodness. But it's difficult, it's stressful. But there's things that would be more helpful, which are on my Amazon list for the visual impairment side of things. I need to get a new rollerball tip for my cane. I've used it so much. I've gone through 2 already, and those are like $12 to $20 a pop. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're really struggling, it is. It is. It's just a lot, and I've had a lot of friends and relatives that have helped when they can, but it is hard. So anyway, that's my rambling for today. I'm sure I'll have more later that I'll record. Hopefully it'll be a little more entertaining. I'll try to throw something fun in there. But, as always, I'm just going to say, please be kind. Nobody really knows what everybody's going through. We're human. People are going to judge each other. But just, our world is so crazy and stressful. Always has been, always will be, unfortunately. But right now, it really is. And kindness really matters. And support really matters. If you can't, you don't have to send $5 to me, but, you can say some prayers. Send positive energy. Just be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and that's pretty much it. Try to find the slightest bit of positivity. For me, when I have a really, really hard time, I do go through some pretty big bouts of depression. I just stay focused on my grandbabies and my daughters. I'm so extremely proud of my daughters. They're such good moms. And I want to be around for them, and I want to be able to do better and show them that we can do better. So that's kind of where I'm at. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you hop back in to see how things are. I appreciate it. Have a good day.